By sunset, I was in handcuffs for tearing down a fake HOA gate on land my family's owned since 1947. And I remember thinking out loud, well, that escalated fast, like it was a joke I hadn't learned the punchline to yet. Morning had started the way it always did. Cold air busted irrigation, and the kind of quiet that makes your breath look like a confession. I was knee-deep in the pasture elbow grease on an ancient wrench, the world smelling of frost and diesel, when Caleb came barreling across the field on that old mule like he'd seen a devil shouting about cops at the front gate before he even slowed down. That was the first real ripple, the kind that tells you something bigger is about to roll across the water. I wiped my hands on a rag, squinted down the gravel road, and watched two sheriff cruisers sitting there like they'd dropped from the sky just to look at me. When one deputy stepped out and put his hand near his hip, I thought, sure, reasonable. Then they read me the 911 call, armed trespasser threatening residents digging trenches with heavy machinery. I laughed because the only trench I dug that morning was to fix an irrigation line, and I carry a rifle because bears don't RSVP. I handed over my deed laminated, shoved into a clear sleeve, highlighted parcel boundaries, county GIS, coordinates the whole boring, perfect paper trail. They checked it, and the younger deputy gave me an apologetic look. We respond to all weapons calls, he said. Fair. But that was the start. Anonymous calls, vague allegations, deputies showing up to explain why a man on his own land shouldn't have a shotgun in bear country. I thought it was a fluke. I kept a log. 3 weeks and 6 calls later, an envelope arrived. Official-looking HOA letterhead. It said in thick bureaucratic language that my ranch had been included in a newly restructured Pine Range Valley HOA cluster, retroactive of course, and that I owed back dues for 240 acres. I laughed so hard I nearly fell off the porch, but it stuck in my gut like a stone. 2 days later, I drove into town to see the faces that had the gall to put that pile of paper into my mailbox. The office looked like a fake log cabin redesigned by a mall builder stucco pretending to be wood plastic antlers on the door toner and candelier. Behind the counter sat a woman in a coral blazer whose smile had the tension of a pulled wire. She called for the president, and Karen Houseman showed up like she owned the valley. Perfect hair clipboard clutched like scripture smile rehearsed for live TV. She slid a glossy map across the conference table. My land was highlighted in pink, labeled Community Oversight Required. No engineer signature, no county seal, but stamped approved March 2023 Planning Review Committee. It was a brochure pretending to be law. I told her flatly that map isn't legal. She said it was pre-certified a formality and warned me about lien placement and property reassignment review if I didn't comply. I told her I'd been a prosecutor for 22 years and that she was threatening me with things that didn't exist. She bristled. I left with the map folded under my arm and a feeling that whatever this was, it wasn't going to stop at a letter. Next morning, someone bolted a temporary steel gate across the public gravel road near our boundary, a shiny sign declaring private HOA road member access only. I called the county road supervisor, public right-of-way clear as day, then fired up the tractor, chained that gate to the loader, and pulled it out of the ground like it was a rotten tooth. An hour later, 2 men in uniform arrived claiming to be district enforcement officers. They read from a clipboard, told me I was interfering, and slapped cuffs on me. They weren't in uniform when the sheriff showed up. No badge numbers, no transport call, just me cuffed on my tailgate, and the kind of theater that makes you want to roll your eyes and hold your ground. Sheriff Mallister took one look and had his patience worn through. Those 2 officers were part of a private security cooperative with an address traced back to the HOA office. I watched them get cuffed instead of me. That night, I pulled out files I hadn't touched in years, called an old friend at the Attorney General's office, and slept in a barn that felt more like a bunker. Word spreads fast in a valley. By morning, there was a blurry photo of me and my tractor and a local feed rancher arrested over HOA dispute. The headline wondered like it was a quaint neighborhood spat and not a full-on scam. Caleb shrugged it off and told me to keep working. We had animals to feed. Someone had to keep the real world running. The hits kept coming. People in tactical khaki with no insignia started turning up at the porch asking to inspect the barn. One of them, K. Dryan, used to work courthouse security and had a reputation for overstepping. He handed me a printed PDF with a fake header. I refused to touch it. I called Mallister. The kid bolted. When the real deputies arrived, they searched the vehicle, fake IDs, a binder of pre-filled HOA violations, and a tablet logged into the county utility database. Charges: criminal impersonation, unlawful detainment, attempt trespassing. They drove off in cuffs. I felt a little vindicated, but that was only an episode, not the series finale. Marshall at the AG's office dug in and matched my nightmare to something colder. The county GIS records were edited. An overlay had been uploaded showing my property as Provisional Zone HOA 7. The edits were traced to an E.Houseman login, Karen's son Ethan, who worked as a GIS assistant through a contractor. They'd poisoned the map from the inside, seeded doubt into databases, and then used that confusion to justify enforcement. Someone submitted a supplemental jurisdiction expansion form with a scanned seal and a retired engineer's stamp. It was clever and low-tech Photoshop and bad courage, and if it had worked on me, it could have worked on anyone who didn't have the time, the money, or the nerve to fight back. We started building an evidence chain. GIS logs the fake map, a certified surveyor's statement that the HOA map was garbage invoices, meeting minutes. I drove into town, scanned every paper I had, and pulled records from the county assessor. The case file showed expedited processing approved by a director listed as Karen Houseman, who doesn't work for the county. That's when I stopped treating it like petty harassment and started calling it organized coercion. They'd set up a shell security company, Western Environs Enforcement Group, LLC, paid from HOA funds. I walked into the HOA office again, asked to inspect their minutes and budgets. Their own bylaws gave me the right, and sat down with files that smelled like toner and panic. I found payments, signed expansion plans, meeting minutes using phrases like absorbing unregistered parcels and enforcement optics. They literally talked about using manufactured enforcement to compel compliance. I photographed everything. Marshall nearly dropped the phone when I read him what I'd found. "We're going to court," he said. "We're not asking for an injunction. We're going for total dissolution." That night, 3 headlights crept across my lower field near the junction. Men in unmarked trucks were trying to cut power to the well, sabotage the electric fence, the whole mechanical slow kill. I moved downhill with a shotgun, not to start anything, just to keep people from hurting livestock, and found them fumbling with cutters and fake work orders. I spoke calmly, loud enough for the pine trees to hear, "Drop the tools." One of them reached for his belt, and I leveled the gun. Sheriff Mallister showed up quick. The men were arrested, and the van revealed a kit of fake forms and tools. Their phones had messages, Karen discussing neutralizing Weston's edge. The conspiracy had leaves and roots. We filed. Marshall filed a 128-page complaint: fraudulent property claims, attempted coercion, criminal impersonation, illicit payments to unlicensed security, civil RICO allegations. The preliminary injunction hearing was loud. The judge, an ex-federal property litigator, didn't have time for euphemism. We played drone footage of surveillance over my barn, metadata tied to Karen's office, the meeting minutes, the payments to the shell company. Each exhibit landed like a hammer. The judge issued a restraining order, referred matters for criminal investigation, and the state AG opened a task force. Karen's office scrubbed their website. Board members started disappearing from the directory. It got uglier as investigators tore through records. One former treasurer flipped, handing over voice memos and reimbursement slips. Emails surfaced between Karen and a couple of ex-prosecutors joking about seizure procedures. Federal agents raided the private security firm and found weapons, fake badges, body armor, all paid by the HOA. The state attorney charged Karen with conspiracy, impersonation, fraud, attempted unlawful seizure. She was arrested not by fake guards but by real marshals. Her 2 fake officers got 8 years apiece. Some county employees faced indictments for falsifying records. The HOA's bank accounts were frozen, the website taken down, the board dissolved. They handed me a judgment, $1.2 million in damages, and a court-ordered apology etched into the county record. I didn't cash the satisfaction check like a victory lap. I rebuilt the gate myself. 5 hours, 1 slab of walnut, my hands dirty, in the same way they were the morning this began. I burned a message into the wood. This farm is not HOA property. You have been warned once. 2 weeks later, a neighbor rolled by with coffee and a handshake. His cousin had been hit with the same hollow storm. We set up a pro bono nonprofit ground back simple help folks fight when bureaucratic thugs try to steal their ground. If there's a lesson here, it's smaller and meaner than you'd expect. Power looks for cracks, paper pixels, polite assumptions, and it creeps in wearing a smile. If you don't check the map will change the world around you. Fight the paperwork. Call the right people. Keep your deeds handy. And remember, systems can be gamed by people who don't mind breaking the rules for profit. Justice worked out for me, but it's messy, slow, and it takes grit. So tell me, if someone came to your land saying they owned the map, what would you do? Share your take, or better yet, tell a story if you've ever had to stand your ground.